Hi guys, today I want to talk about how to build a proper multi-arc Docker image in the CI environment like GitHub Pipeline, Gitlab Pipeline or GitHub Action or buildx pipeline, that kind of case. So we all know we can use single command or single tool, which is Docker buildx, to build this kind of multi-arc, multi-platform Docker image. The background is I want to build a Stripey, quite famous open source CMS Docker image. It doesn't really support official Docker image, so you have to build it yourself. And I realized that when I check the Docker Hub, most of the Docker image I found for Stripey, they are only for AMD, which is for the x86 or x64 arc, which is not really for my case because I'm using a ARM server for running my Docker containers. So I have to build this by myself. I can easily build it on my local machine and everything is fine. But I want to go to next step, which is I want to build it automatically. Like each time when there's a new release, I want to build a new version of Stripey CMS, so I can just easily switch it to the new version of Stripey Stripe on my Kubernetes instance. The first thing I try the Gitlab Pipeline. They have a default pipeline for Docker image build. I do a bit change to support the Docker buildx, for example, add git, and also before script to enable to config the Docker buildx. And also in the bottom, I add this to build the multi-platform Docker image. It's very straightforward and it's very clear. I assume it will just work, but actually it fails. The error message I got is this invalid tag missing manifest digest. I tried to Google it. I tried to even ask ChatGPT, but I didn't really get a solution for this. Most of the answer on internet, most of the answer on Stack Overflow or ChatGPT, it doesn't really solve the problem. So I was thinking, is that because the dinked version, which is Docker in Docker? So I try to update or downgrade the Docker version. It doesn't really help. And I was also thinking, is that because of the wrong tag name? So I tried to use a hard-coded tag here, but somehow it still failed. So I really don't know why. So I'll show you my GitLab action. It's like this. And the error message, if you go to the registry for my container, it will give you this error, which is invalid tag, and it's very annoying. It's not really useful because it cannot help me to trace back what gave me this error. Because I used to use GitHub Action before to this kind of multi-arc container or Docker image building, I realized that last time I used GitHub Action, it's actually just work when I use the default GitHub Action template. So I didn't really get it why GitLab one doesn't really work by default. So what I did is I switched to GitHub Action and try on GitHub Action to build it. This is my GitHub Action. So it's slightly different, but it's also a YAML file. So the trigger on branch master and a few environment variable, and also set up the permission. I think this is something new in GitHub Action about the permission thing. And a few same step. Set up a Docker, login, and this is Docker metadata. I don't believe this is required. It's just for the Docker image tag. So this is not necessary, but if it's better for you to use it to manage your tag properly. But anyway, basically the same thing, just using the buildx to build multiply form. And very surprisingly, when I use GitHub again, it just worked. It didn't give me any issue, didn't give me any error. I can just get my image, pull it, and use it anywhere I like in my Kubernetes instance. So I just wonder why it failed on GitLab, on my GitLab pipeline, but it succeeded in my GitHub Action. So I try to compare. I realized that one big difference between these two pipeline config is cosign. I didn't really notice this before, because when you do a buildx locally, you don't really have to use cosign for sign your image tag. So I didn't really even think about that. I thought it's just like a better to have, but not necessary to have. And I realized that actually that's the thing to give GitLab pipeline this issue, which is the invalid tag. So what I found so far is, I'm not blaming GitLab pipeline. It's an awesome tool. It's free. It's very easy to use. Just in this case, the error message about the tag is not very clear. And when I searched the GitLab documentation, it didn't mention it at all. And another thing is, I think GitLab registry doesn't really mention about the image tag need to be signed. And another thing I want to say is the default pipeline doesn't really just out of the box. It doesn't really work out of the box, which is a little bit annoying when you want to build your own pipeline based on the default template pipeline. Anyway, this is what I want to share today. Thank you guys for watching. If you like, you can see my GitHub Action page too, and to know more about this different. I will post this action config later. Thank you guys.